The notorious Conor McGregor is the most famous UFC fighter to ever enter the octagon. He was the first simultaneous double champ in company history. His pay-per-view numbers blow every other fighter out of the water. He was named the world's highest paid athlete by Forbes. So why is he competing Saturday night at UFC 264 in Las Vegas? Revenge. McGregor's rivalry with Dustin Poirier goes all the way back to September of 2014 when they first faced off. Back then, the Notorious was on a rocket ship towards superstardom and knocked out the Diamond in round one just as predicted. But if you followed Poirier's career, it's all about one thing: persistence. His never quit attitude and stop at nothing drive to be the best in arguably the most ruthless division in the UFC has defined his career. And when he finally got his rematch with McGregor more than 6 years later, he was ready.
Tonight is one of the best I've ever felt, honestly. I was emotionless, I was an assassin, and I was here to execute.
I'll regroup and pick myself up, get up off the floor and go again, and that's it.
Now McGregor and Poirier will settle the score in one of the most anticipated trilogies in combat sports history.
Conor, in the build to the last fight, you were unusually kind to Dustin. Now on fight week, it's the exact opposite. So we're in that switch.
He got knocked the out. Not McGregor fast, McGregor sleep.
I'm gonna go through his head, put holes in them and take it off his shoulders. That's the goal here. So it's on now. Saturday night you can walk around that octagon like a dog and put to sleep.
We cannot wait for this. We're getting ready for the trilogy. McGregor, Poirier meeting for the third time. And overall, it's a fantastic fight card there for UFC 264 in Vegas. Not just the rubber match, but also the welterweight contenders, Gilbert Burns, Stephen Thompson, another battle with a potential title shot there on the line. And it is all going down in Vegas. The fight will be at the T-Mobile Arena next to the MGM. And I got to say, it's already been an eventful week there. The press conference yesterday, we saw McGregor toss in some hot sauce, trying to take a kick at Poirier. Guys, let's dive right into this. This is the betting preview. McGregor right now plus 110, Poirier minus 130. Luke, I want to start with you because I know from the podcast you said in UFC history, the fighter that wins the rematch 9 times out of 12 has gone on to win the trilogy. So Luke, what's your play?
I think the play here from a betting perspective, I can understand from a betting perspective, maybe giving a nod to Conor if you wanted to say, well, listen, the odds should be maybe in his favor and you don't like the idea that he's an underdog. I don't think in that sense it's wrong to go with him. But honestly, like as a straight up pick, I like the Poirier pick, to be quite candid with you. I like the idea that here's a guy who his math is on his side, history is on his side, and everything we've seen this week has just been a little bit odd from Conor. He was sort of himself, but not really. We've heard some stories behind the scenes about him being a little bit frustrated, a little bit short with people in his staff and in his circle, just getting some odd vibes. So I tend to think that this fight will be a lot closer maybe than the second one, but I tend to think that the right guy, Dustin Poirier, will get his hand raised this time. But I acknowledge, from a betting perspective, you can go a little bit both ways. I like Dustin.
Yeah, you're certainly going to like the puncher's chance that McGregor brings to the table. And the fact that, look, whether you believe and you're playing armchair psychologist, which is a big part of this job sometimes when you're looking at press conferences and interviews and trying to gauge from it, I don't get a great feel on the confidence level of McGregor. But how will that affect the fight? That's the real question. I think he's going to have to be a little bit more desperate than normal because of the fact that his elite legacy, his reputation, it's certainly on the line by doubling down, by going back in there against the guy who just not only beat him, but became the first person 6 months ago to stop him via strikes, to knock him out. There is a lot on McGregor's plate to prove in this instance. So whether you believe or not that we are seeing a dialed-in, confident version or somebody going through the motions, he's going to have to be more aggressive and more of a knockout threat early that could lead you into liking the plus play on McGregor. But when it comes down to it, that second fight was not an aberration. The first one in 2014, that's an aberration in terms of who the fighters became. That second one showed Poirier better in every single category, basically across the board. So expect Conor to pour out what's left in that tank, but also expect Poirier to be the last man standing, and I think that's the best player.
All right, let's go down the fight card to Burns Thompson. Thompson, the betting favorite at minus 155. Gilbert Burns plus 130. But BC, I want to start with you here because unlike the first one, you're going with the underdog here. Why is that?
Yeah, look, I think this is Gilbert Burns' moment to remind us who he is. It's easy to say you're only as good as your last fight and in a recency bias. And even though he went in there against the champion, Kamaru Usman, and Gilbert Burns had some moments early. He got defeated in one-sided fashion and got finished. but he put his game together in the second half of his career, becoming just as dangerous on the feet as he is as a submission expert, jiu-jitsu master on the ground. And I'm seeing a hungry guy who may be catching Stephen Thompson at the right spot. And what I mean by that is it's not that Thompson at age 38 has shown us any major slippage, but it's hard to maintain that quick, fast twitch, foot speed heavy style for Thompson. And if you're going to give me 3 rounds for this, knowing that both guys are going to have to fill those 3 rounds with action and really potentially push the pace to make sure they get the nod on the judges' scorecards, I like Burns' explosive abilities, and I think he's going to finish Wonderboy to put himself right back in title contention.
It's a bold claim. I mean, listen, belief in Gilbert Burns is not misplaced. The guy is obviously incredibly talented. He can do so much. So I don't think that BC's analysis is wrong per se, but I'll at least give you the opposite perspective. I kind of like Thompson in this one, not because I think Burns is some kind of scrub. He's really good, and as we mentioned, the jiu-jitsu black belt and the high-level world championship jiu-jitsu black belt is an ace in the hole. He's got a coach from Holland who has a particular style that could be a really bad matchup for Wonderboy. But we've heard that kind of thing a lot around Wonderboy, and I tend to think at 38, he still has a very unique style where you have to really close the distance and get your hands on him. I think Burns will be able to do that in spots, but this is the bigger cage. It's not at the UFC Apex. That means Wonderboy's got a lot more time to move, and he's done this kind of thing where he's made actually really good fighters who have very good striking look a little bit foolish when they have a real problem navigating that distance. I tend to think that what's happening here is Gilbert Burns really wants to get that last loss and the taste of it out of his mouth. Understandably, it was a very, very difficult thing for him to overcome, but at the same time, Wonderboy Thompson is tricky. I mean, this guy made Jorge Masvidal look, you know, I won't say amateurish, but not at all in his league. I tend to think this one could get dicey, but I think Wonderboy Thompson with the bigger cage and on a bit of a 2-fight roll here, he probably gets his hand raised.
Opposite sides on that one, and you guys are on opposite sides in this next one, the heavyweight division. We have Tuivasa facing off against former NFLer turned fighter Greg Hardy. Tuivasa coming off back-to-back wins, both of them knockouts. He's the favorite at -135, Hardy plus 115. Luke, we're going with the former NFLer. Why?
This is a tricky fight. I got to be honest with you. This one's really hard to call. Tuivasa is more skilled. And in general, here's your rule in looking at fights. Skills win fights. Generally, the person who has more ways to win and has, you know, decent defense, they should get their hand raised. That should be Tuivasa. But the problem is, I actually think Hardy has better pure stand-up. On the ground, I think Tuivasa is much better. If Tuivasa goes in there and says, I'm going to play this one smart, close distance, take this guy down and wear him out, then that's his fight to lose. I just don't know if he's going to do that. And if he actually accommodates Hardy, which he has done with a lot of other opponents who are strike-friendly, and it stays on the feet, I actually like Hardy's chances to win under those conditions. So really, this is a bit of like a fight IQ test for a guy like Tuivasa. Can he put the fight where he needs to, or is he going to put the fight where he wants to and then fight at a potential disadvantage? For those reasons, I'm going to lean towards Hardy.
Yeah, I think, Luke, this is a be careful what you ask for Hardy. He's the one who went after Tuivasa on Instagram and said, quote unquote, let's bang, let's make it a fight. From Hardy's perspective, you have to think he looks at Tuivasa as a one-note guy, a guy who can come out there with his hands, not going to take him down, can get him into a fight. Why do I say beware of that? Because even though Hardy looks great early in fights, he's a plus athlete, he's got big-time power, he's better than you probably think he is at striking up to this point. What happens when chaos starts happening? What happens when the gas tank comes involved? Tuivasa thrives in chaos. In fact, he prefers the fights to be as sloppy as possible. It's that sort of battle-tested experience within him that I think Hardy's going to end up getting into a war, maybe even as the fight goes on, and his gas tank won't be there for him as he has shown in the past. I like Tuivasa, and I like him big by a finish.
Wow.
All right? Put it on the line here.
All right.
I need that energy for all of these fights right now. This next one could be just as good. Let's look at the women's bantamweight. Irina Aldana, Yana Kunitskaya. Aldana with a rocky start to her UFC career, but now she's 12-6. She is the favorite here. BC, what's your pick in this one?
Well, look, Aldana just moments ago, about an hour ago on the scales, weighed in over that 135-pound limit by almost 5 pounds. So that's certainly something interesting to look at. But let's talk about what's at stake in this fight. It's kind of a quasi #1 contender bout. This is a division, women's bantamweight. that has featured Amanda Nunes dominating, cleaning it out almost up to 2 times, but it really hasn't seen a long list of competitive challengers ready. That gives the winner in this case probably a chance to leapfrog ahead. So who do I like a little bit more? Aldana's a great striker. I love her knockout ability, but Kunitskaya is just solid. She can take the fight to the ground. She's big, she's strong, she's hard to manhandle in there. I expect 3 rounds, maybe not the most exciting, but I'm going to take Kunitskaya for that ground game to give me the edge.
Well, I'm a bit with BCM, which is to say halfway. Prior to today's weigh-ins, I thought Aldana had a really good chance. I still think she has a really good chance. I'll at least give you the case for her. I will say, though, missing weight by about 4 pounds, not only unprofessional, it could signal the fact that she might even have an injury because she couldn't do the road work. Maybe she had a twisted ankle, and that's why her weight is that high. Whenever you see weight above 2.5 pounds for a fighter who's this experienced, something's gone a little bit wrong in the process. That's a bit of a red flag. But, okay, the case for Aldana. Before all of this, I would have said I love her takedown defense, I love her footwork, I love her lateral movement and her jab. Everything works behind it, and I thought that actually would be a big problem for someone like Kunitskaya, who has good overall ability, but nothing is lights out and certainly doesn't have that same kind of awareness of how to use motion effectively in the way that Aldana does. So under those normal conditions, I thought this was a fight to win for Aldana, but I got to say, BC's right. When you miss weight by that much, something's gone terribly wrong. We're going to have to see what that is.
All right, guys, we were going to talk about Sean O'Malley, Chris Moutinho, but we're going to keep that simple because Sean O'Malley's minus 800. Both of you are taking him, not giving any chance for an upset. So let's go to the prelims because I love talking about the prelims with you guys. You find the best bets here. Luke, give me your best bet for the prelims.
Well, my best bet for the prelims. I think there's a lot of different ways you could go on this one. I've been talking about Ryan Hall and Ilia Topuria. Actually, you know what? I think I might stick with that one here for just a little bit. You've got Ryan Hall as a significant underdog. When I say that, I mean sort of in the plus 200, right? I think you have Topuria in the minus 200 range. You have Ryan Hall in the plus 100-ish range. I think that Topuria is a hammer, and he's going to be a hard guy to beat. But at the same time, if you like interesting bets, if you like ways that are fights that could go sideways out of nowhere, this is sort of one to look at. I think Hall could pick that up with a leg lock, maybe potentially early first or second round. Interesting way to bet. So Topuria, a bit of a hammer. Ryan Hall, a bit of a guy who can make magic happen under abnormal conditions.
You know, I got my eye close on this women's flyweight bout between Jessica Ai and Jennifer Maia, and I think we've got 2 stocks going in either directions here. Look, when you're talking about Jessica Ai, she's been a player in this division, went to the title level and got head kick knockout by Valentina Shevchenko, but she's lost 3 of 4 overall, and I'm just not seeing that extra edge in her fights to get over the top. So what about Jennifer Maia? She looked very good in that title loss to Shevchenko, better than most other contenders have done. She showed toughness. She showed maybe if she, with a little bit more belief in herself, she might even be better than she realizes she is. Jessica is the perfect opponent to come out, make a statement, and try to get back in line for a second chance at Shevchenko's belt.
Honorable mention, very quickly, Dricus du Plessis from South Africa. Pay attention to him.
All right, I love it. And that leads me right into needing to download and follow your podcast because you guys are going to talk about all these. By the way, happy anniversary, 2-year anniversary for Luke and Brian there on the Morning Kombat. Luke gave a great reason because we can't go through all the fights here on HQ. We don't have time, but you do have time on their podcast. Make sure to download and follow.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.